Since you met with us in the spring, the field's been narrowed from 17 to 3.
Yeah.
Each can state that they have wide-ranging law experience, talk about their fine character, hit the ground running. But from a voter's perspective, why vote for you over the other two?
That is my favorite question. I have favorite, and my being judge is far more than saying I have great legal experience. We need it. You need to have legal experience. You need judges who could sit on the bench and understand what goes on in a courtroom. But it's also something that you need to do by your life. And I don't mean because you had a plan. I had no political plan. I have no political agenda. I came to this race, and I may have told you this back, several months ago, and I apologize. I came to this race because I was complaining like everybody else. I was disgusted, and I was complaining, and I was sitting on the sidelines. And then I realized you have two choices. You complain or you step up and you try to resolve the problem. And I talked to my husband and my 3 sons, because obviously the plan greatly involved them. And we, as a family, I said, this is what Mom's going to do, and here's what it's going to entail. And we jumped into this, and they were great, because I explained the odds before there were 17. It was like 6 of us then, then all of a sudden it was 17. Those odds were greater. And being a sports-minded home filled with testosterone, they all were like, Mom, let's do it. And we did it. I stepped out and started one of the craziest journeys of my life, but one of the best, I have to tell you. And because you could complain or you could be part of the solution. So I stepped into the race, again, without a political agenda or plan, and just said, look at my life and what I've done, and look at where I've come to this point. And this is why I need to be judge. We need new voices on our bench. We need diversity. We have 10 judges in Luzerne County. They should be different. There should be different viewpoints. There should be different people who come from different places. I come from a public service background. As a district attorney in the Justice Center, we're grant funded. There was all the hoopla that the money we got was $700,000. That's over 3 years, covering lawyers, advocates, and office. Break down the cost. It's not like we're getting paid huge amounts of money. You do this because it's the work you should do and it's the right thing to do. Being a public servant, I think, separates me immediately from the pack. I represent people who are poor, who have been victimized by the most horrible crimes, who have suffered more than any of us would even want to think. And I often say that the stories are more egregious, and people would think you almost were making them up, and that's what we would deal with every day. And these people are who we advance on a regular basis. So the poor, the victims, the disenfranchised, because they come from all places with all kind of issues. Right there, I'm different from the rest. I'm not coming from a law firm or a job where you're paid money for what you do and you can give them great big checks. All I ever give, and all we do, is give them a day in court, God willing, support that we get paid on a regular basis, some housing, and the ability to move on. And it's a very, very different focus and a very different philosophy. So I bring that to the bench, saying, we need a new voice, somebody who understands. Somebody who understands that when you come to court with and I use it, we had a Korean woman who came to court, and the court gave us a translator. Do you know how many hundreds of dialects of the Korean language there are? And the court didn't, they said, here's your translator. She couldn't understand. It was terrible to see this horrific of a situation, and now the court's expecting a translator who doesn't even speak this dialect, who finally, I can't translate. Everybody is hysterical in the courtroom. She's upset, and I have insight to those things. I have insight to making sure the courtroom is set up, that we know what's what, because unless you're working in this area with this population, you're not going to be able to relate to what happens and what we need to move things effectively. So I bring that with me. I bring a perspective that's just very different from the others. I also bring, I think civic duty is so important, and it's about what you do for your community, and not what you do just because you're running for a campaign. What you do and what you've done prior to that. For the last 15 years, I've been a speaker. I have been in every county. We've been around the state of Pennsylvania. We taught law enforcement, medical professionals, social workers, lawyers. We would go and we would speak on protocols, on what you need to do, how our society's safer. What happens to a rape victim in Luzerne County should be the exact same thing that happens to a rape victim in Susquehanna County, even though they're extremely different. One's a very rural county that doesn't even have a hospital unless you go to Sayre. But we needed to get people in the same place and the same structure. Your civic responsibility is important. I've done that for 15 years. 3 task forces in Luzerne County, Lackawanna County, and Susquehanna County on protocols, domestic violence and sexual assault, and just making sure that our society's safer for all of us with the police and the agencies. And when you're up in Susquehanna County, there's a huge amount of religious people who play a great role, which was very different from other counties we worked in. And you had to learn that, and we adjusted, and we try to work together. I think being civic-minded is so important. In addition to that, I've been on WVIA for many, many years as an expert on these topics. I've spoke on behalf of the Pennsylvania Coalition Against Rape and the Pennsylvania Coalition Against Domestic Violence. All of these things we do for free. You do them because it's the right thing to do. If we're going to make society safer, we need to volunteer what we do and what we know. And I do the PBI, which is the Pennsylvania Bar Institute, and those issues have been on other things, on confidentiality issues, on what a person should say to their court-appointed psychologist, or a whole different area that we moved into, because there's things that need, and that has nothing to do with domestic violence or sexual assault. It just has to do with cases that we've worked on. And I think that being very civic-minded is what a judge should be, that they're aware of what goes on and that they're willing to put themselves out there. Time-consuming, yes. Necessary, absolutely. And then I always say it's the community. Who's your community and what do you do? My family is by far one of the strongest staples in my life. My family, my mother and father, my sisters and brothers, and I come from a large, very tight-knit family. Our values were taught very early, and then my family, my 3 sons and my husband Scott. You know, it's about building a stronger society and a foundation for them. So I'm in the community wherever I can be. You know, at the PTA. 4 years I was the PTA president. You might laugh, but trust me, that's a very political place to be. I'm just letting you know. But I had to be there in the schools, working with the school boards. I was on the Wilkes-Barre Area Accreditation Committee because our schools have to stay accredited in a time when it's, I mean, education, we need to bump up our mark and be on top of it. I served on the accreditation committee. I'm in our baseball organization. I'm a board member. I've been on advisory boards for DVSC and Valley Santa and others, Montessori. I think the point is that you have to be in your community. You have to be a part of your community to understand what's going on in the world around us. So I just think I'm a new voice. I'm a different perspective. 10 judicial spots.